Hi everyone, hope you're all doing well today, and thank you for joining me for another GT Sport race video. Please consider subscribing to my channel if you want to see more content like this in the future, and it would help me grow this channel a little bit as well. My name is Yure, and today we're in Japan, in Tokyo to be more precise. This was round 5 of the FIA Manufacturer Series in this exhibition series, and we were at South Inner Loop of the Tokyo Expressway in Group 3 cars. I went with Citroen for this season, as you can see, just to get a feel of the cars and see how I would do, as well as getting some more practice before the official season coming up. Jumping straight into qualifying now, as this Mazda just flies through us. I do have to say that this wasn't my first race of the day, nor the first attempt of getting a good qualifying lap here either. I did 2 races before this one, and neither of them was as good as I would have liked. The same could be said about the qualifying session for this race as well, but let's take a look at this lap now and see how that goes. Getting around the final corner now, since the pit lane is located almost in the middle of the lap, we don't have to do a full warm-up lap. Just a few corners and we're good to go. For this first turn, I used the 50-meter board above the track as my brake marker, braking for a little bit and getting as close to the wall on the inside and on the exit of the corner as possible. It's easy to run wide and hit the wall on your way out of the corner, which can cost you quite a lot of time down this straight, since you lose some speed hitting that wall. Approaching the first of the 2 hard braking zones on this track, using the start of the curb on the left as my braking reference, trying to slow the car down enough to get around this slow section, and just managing the throttle inputs to get the best run out of the section. It wasn't hard to get the rear end of this car to step out if you put too much power down too soon. This was another corner you really have to get a good exit out of, since it leads to another long flat out section, heading into the tunnel and all the way down to the braking zone before the tight hairpin. Even though it is a flat out section, it's not hard to make a mistake in one of these fast corners, maybe going too wide and hitting the wall. If you're playing the drinking game, hitting the wall will be your cue for this video, as there was a lot of that. Just as I say that, I nearly hit the wall myself, but managed to keep it out of it anyway. Looking for a 150-meter mark above the track and braking hard just after it, trying to stop the car and getting that rotation. Once again, the exit speed being the most important thing here. Just a few corners left to go now in this final sector, being very technical as well. Looking for the 50-meter board again, getting on the brakes for a short while and turning in slightly after. On the exit, trying to stay to the right to get a better line through the left and right combination coming up before the final left-hander. It's another tricky corner to get right, as you can see me getting very comfortable with the wall on the exit, which unfortunately cost me some time. Final push for the line, and let's see where we will start this race. Crossing the line in 1 minute 56.3 is good enough for 14th position at the moment. As we take a look at the final results, we can see we are starting in 14th, with over a second and a half behind the leader. Next up, we have the Manufacturer Series intro, and then we will get straight into the race. Here we are, on the grid, waiting for the start. As you can see, this will be a grid start. One good thing of that is that no matter how bad your qualifying went, you still have some chance to get a great result. On the downside though, turn 1 here is a pretty tight corner, and more importantly, there's a hard braking zone going into turn 2, so that caused some carnage in my first 2 races. Let's see how it goes this time. Setting our traction control on 1, the lights go out and away we go. We can see the Supra ahead getting a slow start, but unfortunately there's nowhere to go for us, so we had to stay behind the Supra. Getting a slight tap from behind, pushing us into the wall, doesn't help that much either, but we continue on anyway. It's better to stay on this right hand side, even though it's the outside of this corner, but more importantly, you then have the inside line for turn 2, which I already said was a bit sketchy. Going side by side with Got Max Power through here, a well-known name of the GT Sport world. We're just keeping to the right side of the road, defending that inside line, and let the others bash each other on the outside. Unfortunately, someone goes into the back of us as well, pushing us a bit wider than expected, but we still gain quite a lot of positions despite that. People going into each other and hitting the wall while we get past them without any big issues. Coming out of the docks, we're in 11th place, but having the inside line for this right-hander makes the Italian on our left back out and we go up to P10. The driver in front also having a big 3-second penalty, which is gonna cost them a lot of time when we get around again to the penalty line. So we don't have to push that hard, as we're going to go past them anyway. Despite that, we still have to stay as close to that Porsche as we can. One thing is staying in the tow, maybe save a bit of fuel that way. We'll talk about tires and fuel in just a minute. The driver ahead starts braking way earlier than expected, and because of hitting the brakes that hard, our car gets a bit unstable and we hit the Nissan. Fortunately, they don't go flying off, just manage to keep it under control, and as I've said in my previous videos, I always try to stay back if I see that I've made a mistake and not go in front of the car I accidentally hit. At the moment then, we're staying behind this Nissan, going through the final sector of lap 1. Remember, we started 14th, went down to 18th at one point, and got back up to 9th now. Not a bad progress for one lap, I'd say. Another important thing is that we're staying in the slipstream of the car ahead. Looking back, we can see we have another car right on our rear bumper, following us very closely. Didn't want to go defensive into turn 1, as I was hoping the Italian behind would race smart and we could work together to keep up with the cars ahead. We can see that they are staying behind, not moving out of the tow, giving us slight bump draft as well. That means they are willing to work together, stay in this race and fight for some higher positions later on in the race maybe. Let's talk about tires and fuel now. There were 2 compounds available for this race, soft and medium tires. As you might have noticed, we're using the mediums at this point, and the strategy was to make these tires last till the end of the race and not go into the pits. Medium compound tires were the only ones mandatory to use in this race, and even though the softs are quite significantly faster, very few drivers actually decided to go in and change them. There were a couple of them that actually made it work, but mostly the drivers that changed tires finished the race towards the back of the pack. Oh, let's take a look what's going on here. We come really close to the cars ahead, going really slowly through the hairpin here, but we stay in 9th place at this point. However, we can see the Italian getting a better exit out of the hairpin and getting ahead of us, so eventually we do lose a position there. As I was saying, because the time loss in the pits is huge in this game at the moment, it's almost always better to stay out and try to save as much tire life as possible throughout the race. But when it comes to fuel, it wasn't such a big issue. Had to manage it a little bit by short shifting this car, but I had no problems getting to the end with a bit of fuel to spare as well. Like I mentioned in my previous video, you can check it out by clicking on this floating card in the top right corner. I usually manage to save a bit more tire life than the others, at least that's what it feels like to me. Of course, I do lose some grip as well, but lots of times I've seen the others having a much harder time with their worn out tires than myself. I usually start going faster towards the end of the races even. Well, I mean, faster as expected at least. I always try to drive as smooth as possible, gradually going on the brakes, not stamping on them 100% right away, and try to be smooth with the steering inputs as well. That's why I like these longer races more as opposed to the shorter daily races like daily race A or B. Driving a tiny bit smoother than the others around me sometimes does cost me a position or two, especially because I don't fight people going past me as hard as I maybe should, which is one of the parts of my racing that I know I have to work on a bit more. Anyway, back to the race now, as we're heading through this tunnel for the 3rd time now. Alright, I forgot to mention it before, although you might have already figured it out on your own anyway, This is a 15-lap race, so we'll have 12 laps left at the end of this one. Coming into this hard braking zone again, the Italian in front kinda goes half defensive, and we see this pack of cars ahead getting close to each other again. None of us making any big mistakes here, and we continue on as we were. We skip ahead a couple of corners to the end of the lap now. We can see some door banging in front of us, and the Brit gets the worst exit out of the corner of all of those cars. There's no point of pulling alongside them, so just giving them a slight bump, getting them up to speed again, and we can all stay in this short train of cars going through turn 1. Unlike a few moments ago, and as we get a much better exit than the Brit here, we do move alongside them. It is a longer straight this one, and there's a harder braking zone at the end of it. But they get pulled along by the tow of the cars in front, which we didn't have, so we have to stay behind them. Already thinking about the braking zone here, just staying behind and hoping someone would outbrake themselves and maybe take all 3 of them out so we could gain those 3 positions. But that doesn't happen, and we're still behind them all. Skipping ahead again to the end of lap 4, we're still looking into the back of this Jag. Unfortunately, not just looking, but going into them as well. A slight loss of concentration, and with such close racing, it's easy to bump into someone. That makes us lose a bit of time, but more importantly, we even lose the tow, and that will most certainly leave us vulnerable to the Italian behind getting past us. Trying to get a good exit out of this corner, let's keep an eye out on that delta on the left-hand side of the screen. We were just over 4 tenths ahead at the start of the straight, but the Italian keeps coming closer and closer. Thinking of going defensive here, but I thought they weren't going to go for it this time. Unfortunately, I was wrong, and to not lose that much time, decided to back out and let them get the position and fight back later on in the race. But it looks like something happened in the group ahead as we get past the Brit now, so basically we lost the position and gained 1 back straight away. Moving on a couple of laps again, this time it's us who have the slipstream down this straight into turn 2. Staying in that tow as long as possible and pulling alongside Gigi Enza, with each of us having our own lane going uphill here, we're going to have to be really brave to go around the outside. Just getting our nose in front of Gigi, but you can see the advantage of the inside line. Unfortunately, we couldn't make the move stick through here, but there's another good overtaking opportunity coming up at the hairpin. Taking a quick glance behind, we can see Got Max Power edging ever closer to us. He's also one of the fastest drivers in this game, but it looks like he's also not having the best of races here. Fortunately, the gap behind is right around a second, and with the slipstream from Gigi, we should be able to pull away even more. Being a second ahead of the car behind lets us focus only on the car we're chasing and trying to get past, since the cars ahead of us are all quite far away, so it will probably be very hard to catch them up anyway. Looking for a move round the outside again, but that doesn't quite work out for us, and trying to get some kind of a cutback on the way out, which doesn't work out either, so we're staying behind Gigi at this moment in time. We have to stay right on their tail to get a chance to get past into the next braking zone down in turn 2. We did stay close enough to the Italian, and we have a good run on them now. Let's hope this time we can get the move done and stay ahead. We're on the outside again, but get on the brakes later and finally manage to get past Gigi. We need a good exit out of these corners to not let them get ahead of us again at the end of the next straight. It's really hard to stay ahead of someone on this track with such long straights and with the help of slipstream. We all know how much of a difference the slipstream makes in this game. Let's look at the prime example of that here. As we exit that right-hander, we were just shy of 7 tenths ahead, but we can see how quickly the car behind gains on us. Hopefully, we will still be far enough ahead for them not to go for a move into the hairpin. Pay attention to the radar in the bottom right corner though. As I've said, I didn't think they were close enough. We even started braking later by the looks of it, but somehow they managed to squeeze past, and we have to think of a new way to get ahead again. Looks like Got Max Power behind us also had some kind of a battle with another car going on, or they made a mistake somewhere. We're now more than 2 seconds ahead, so don't have to worry about someone catching us up at this point. We can really focus on the car ahead of us. Getting towards the end of lap 8, we can also see P7 and even P6 in the distance. which puts all my rambling earlier about not being able to catch them up to bed. We can see that we're gaining on them now. I mean, not gaining an insane amount of time, slowly but surely though. I just tried to show my nose on the inside for this corner, not really having any intentions to go for a move, but it looks like it worked anyway, as Gigi hits the wall on the exit of the corner. This time the speed difference is even bigger, and we're not giving up the inside line as there's just enough space on this right hand side. Gigi does see us eventually when we pull up alongside, but there's nothing else they can do, and this time we're getting ahead a bit easier. We're up to 8th place again, with almost 7 laps left. We can see the tires in the bottom left corner getting really worn out already at this point. As we get to the end of the lap, we managed to pull away from Gigi slightly, but as I've said, the tires are not in the best of shapes anymore, and you can see that with the mistake we just did. Unfortunately, all of the advantage we had doesn't do us much good anymore, since Gigi gets past us relatively easily. As we go around this first corner, we do remain in the tow still, and hope for a good run down this straight now. So let's see what we can do. Are we going to repeat what we did one lap back, or can Gigi defend well enough to stay ahead? Unlike the previous lap, we're having to go on the left side again, which will be the outside line for the next couple of corners. We get ahead by the slightest of margins, and we even brake at the exact same moment, but the inside line works wonders here again. So we're not getting past this time again, we're gonna have to look for another chance. We move on to lap 12 now, still behind Gigi as you can see. But look ahead, someone has a penalty in the group of cars we're trying to chase down, and we're not that far away from them anymore. This feels like we could maybe gain some more positions till the end of the race, in those 3 laps that are left now. But we really have to be careful on these worn tires. They are really getting towards the end of their life now. These fast sweeping corners don't really make our life much easier, because it's not that difficult to lose grip and go into the wall, which could be game over for us at this point. Just like we do here, for example. We might have been a bit too close to Gigi, as they didn't get the best of runs through the S's. We lose quite a lot of time now, which will put us in the grips of the car behind. They are coming at us with haste, but let's hope we can stay ahead after this first corner. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen. In the last second, they decide to dive down the inside, and if I wouldn't have seen it on the radar and turned away at the last moment, this could have gone terrible for both of us. This way, we just lose one position and continue with our race. There will still be some chances to get back past. We were too far behind to go for a move into this corner, especially as we can see what's going on in front of us. Unfortunately for them, one of the drivers spins around, and after this Nissan serves their penalty, we will gain 2 positions in a few seconds of this lap. That doesn't sound bad at all, I'd say. After that long battle with Gigi and looking into the back of that Mercedes, we find ourselves looking into the back of a Toyota now. But this time we also have to look out for a car behind us as well, as the French driver is right on our rear bumper, approaching the hairpin again, really close to the back of the Toyota, but they go defensive and we have nowhere else to go but stay on the outside. Looks like we started braking later than both of the cars around, and as you can see, Drift Artist went too wide, and on the exit we get a much better traction and get that position. They aren't giving up the position without a fight, looks like it, but the next corner is a right-hander, so we have the inside line this time, and they rattle back out of it so we can all keep going. You can hear the tires getting killed even more, but we still have just over 2 laps left to go, so they better hang in there for a bit longer. As I was saying earlier, with such worn tires, it's very important to apply the power very carefully. Doing it too fast, especially coming out of the hairpin, the car can easily spin out. The Toyota behind looks very determined to get past us again. We go slightly defensive, but unfortunately a slight contact pushes us into the wall. Unfortunately, we lose the momentum and go down 3 positions eventually, as you can see. We just have to stay close to this pack and not lose too much time. The Toyota ahead isn't making anyone's life easy through here, making the Greek driver go into the wall as well. At this point, I already knew what was going to happen. Someone will try to outbrake everyone else, and it won't end well. Just by staying out of it and sticking to my own braking point, It allowed me to get ahead of almost all of them. This Greek driver, however, is one of those that went into the pits to change tires, so we really wouldn't have any chance staying ahead of them with such worn tires anyway. Even with those fresher tires, the Mazda goes into the wall and we follow their lead. The car behind was just close enough that they weren't able to get around us quick enough, so we're still ahead. Luckily, the Mazda is giving us a nice little tow down this straight as well. Looks like there might have been a slight contact behind us as both of the cars following us disappear from the radar. We really get a good run on the Greek driver, and deciding where to go, they go to the right, and in the final moment we move to the left and not go in the back of that car, squeezing us against the wall, but just leaving enough space for a car's width, and with newer tires they keep their position. Someone behind us came flying into that hairpin, and it actually helped us to get a bit further away from those behind. We just have one more lap left now to hold them behind us, and as the Mazda magically disappears ahead of us, we come to the final couple of corners now. Coming to the end in 8th place now, with a comfortable lead from the cars behind. What could possibly go wrong? And yeah, I wouldn't be myself if I didn't do something stupid at the very end. Looking back as the cars behind get closer and closer, is it going to be enough to keep this position? We just managed to keep this 8th place in the end. It was such an exciting race, despite how the first two races went. It was difficult to keep the tires lasting that long, but most of us were in the same boat regarding that. I was really happy with this result. I know it's not a win, but it's good enough for me anyway. So that will be all for this video. Thank you for watching, and make sure to like the video and subscribe to my channel to see more content in the future if you would like. But anyway, see you next time and goodbye.